On today's Hiwatt Soundbite, we're owning and archiving our own master recordings. Well, this is the time of year that I love to do some house cleaning in the studio. And I'm not talking about dust, I'm talking about data. This is a process where I like to go through all my local hard drives. I'm talking about my external hard drives that I put my audio and my song files onto. Well, it's sort of like a multi-track year in review, so to speak. I sort of look back over the past 12 months and I look at all the projects that I've worked on and I sort of categorize them. I basically look at the ones that are still currently open. There's maybe projects that I'll have just finished recently, but I'm still going to need access to it in the next few months. And there's definitely going to be a bunch of stuff that I know I can just archive and put away indefinitely. Well, going through the process this year has once again brought my attention to something that I think is just a major red flag that's going on in the independent recording industry. Now, I'm talking about master recordings, multi-track masters. You know, it's unbelievable and truly scary just how many projects that I've produced over the past 10 or 15 years where I'm the only holder of the original master to that session. Yeah, that's crazy. And I'm not just talking about independent artists. I'm talking about some well-known artists that don't even have a copy of their original master recording. Now, I have a strong theory as to why we're here. Honestly, it's the lack of a record company. I mean, with the changes that we've made in this industry over the past 20 years, when I used to make records for labels regularly, those projects were never considered complete until that record company hired me to go back in the studio after the whole thing was finished and create an archive of that session and ultimately hand those masters back over to the label. Yeah, they would literally reserve some of the budget of that record to be able to pay me to go do that. Well, in today's world of independent recording, the budgets just aren't there. I mean, I know exactly where this stems from. It's that we get to the end of a project in today's budget world, and it's all we can do to kind of scrape out the end of that project and get it off to the mastering facility. And you're just tapped. There's absolutely no budget left, and in many cases, you've gone over budget. So the very last thing an artist is going to want to hear, especially if they're funding their own project, is from their producer is like, oh yeah, you're going to have to hire me to come back into the studio and make sure that we have a proper archive and that you have a copy of this thing. Well, this is so important. And, you know, in a quick session that we're doing today, there's no way I'm even going to touch the surface of the legal aspect of who owns that master. It's quite complicated. But I'm just going to kind of say, I'm just going to assume that we're talking to an independent artist that might be out there funding their own project. Don't give up any portion of that copyright into the sound recording. It's too important. The master recording of any project has a lot of value, okay? So particularly if you're a young artist and emerging and trying to kind of grow and see what you can do out there, a lot of cool things can happen. If you enter into some agreement somewhere with somebody and you give up the rights to that master, a lot of things change. And, you know, I could just say that there's a lot of different ways you can compensate a producer. It doesn't have to be by having them own the master, okay? An independent artist has a lot more options today. You don't necessarily have to go drop $250,000 to make a record. You can go work with an independent producer that's got a really cool little facility and bang out an amazing sounding album. It's just so important that if you're going to do that, don't even consider going in and starting recording at anybody's studio without an agreement in place. A nice, clear agreement between you and that studio owner that is very, very clear. You're going to own 100% of the master recording. The copyright into the sound recording is going to be owned 100% by you, the artist. You're going to pay for the studio time. You're going to pay maybe the producer fee. So I've really sort of started to spearhead this issue over the past few months. I've reached out to some of these artists and I've kind of explained the situation. It was just like, yeah, I'm not comfortable sitting on all of your masters. This is just crazy. Let's get all this stuff archived onto a couple of new external hard drives. So as an independent artist who's funding their own projects and making it all happen, yeah, retain 100% ownership of the copyright into that sound recording. And just as important, before you sign off on that thing, make sure you've got a properly archived copy of your own session.